Now, what are you all? You're all going to Berkeley then?
Not all of us.
Who are your teachers? Anybody got Brett Wilmot?
Yeah, I got Brett. Yeah.
Good. Anybody got John Damian?
Yeah.
Those are about the only guys I know from
Yeah.
Years ago.
I saw you at Ryle's, and I told him about using all the bar and all this scraping strings and stuff. And he said, maybe he's ready to jam with me.
The Rubber Telly group.
Yeah.
You still have that?
Yeah. He's doing a recital December 13th.
With that flute thing on it?
Yeah. That's Friday the 13th.
Yeah, well, that's appropriate.
Yeah.
And you're all like interested in improvising and that kind of music and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you could talk about going through changes or something. Yeah.
Well, we're probably
Trying to break the ice.
Do you ever think chord-scale relationship, or do you just go with...
Well, yeah, it's there's no way to really get around that unless you're about 1 out of a billion people.
Yes, absolute perfect pitch or something like that.
Well, or just some people are just such naturally intuitive improvisers. In fact, I've really only heard one person who absolutely 100% has gotten around it, and that's Ornette.
Yeah.
Whose musical sense is just so strong that doesn't even. That's like.
Because I know I think of it, and sometimes I think that's really bad to think of it.
Well, no. The thing is that what I'm saying is you have to know it. You shouldn't have to think about it.
Yeah.
And it's. There's an analogy that Gary Burton used to use that has always been to me one of the best ways of looking at that subject, which is you just asked me that question, and while you were asking that, you never thought about verbs and pronouns or adjectives or any of that stuff. You had something on your mind, and you said it, and you've been talking in English since you were a little kid, and all that kind of stuff takes care of itself. It's a subconscious thing, and you might make a little grammatical error every now and then, but if your basic point gets across and the person that you're trying to ask something of or that you're trying to tell something to gets what you're talking about, then it's successful. It's a complete thing.
It just depends on how hard the changes are, where they're at.
Well, and then it depends on what you want to talk about in English.
Right.
If your goal is to find out where's the bathroom, that's going to be an easier set of grammatical rules that you'll have to subconsciously have absorbed than if you're going to want to talk about quantum physics, But, the thing is, if your goal is to play on, a standard tune or something that's got a lot of changes, then you're talking about a much higher goal than if your goal is to play on D7 for an hour. And so it depends on what it is you want to talk about finally, and that's just a personal decision that each musician has to decide. But for the sake of argument, I'll assume that we're all interested in, dealing with more or less music that's in the tradition of post-bebop music, which is going to involve a lot of harmony. And if that's true, there's no way you cannot deal with that stuff, particularly because of Coltrane. And with this one cat, it's made everyone's life much harder because there's so much stuff that's now part of the vocabulary. To me, it's him and then of course also Charlie Parker. With those two cats, we're talking about years and years of learning before it becomes a subconscious thing. We're talking about the musical equivalent of quantum physics with that, and it's going to come easier to some people than to others. And if you're one that it comes easy to, great. But most people, it's going to take a lot of hard study and a lot of practice and stuff like that. But I guess what my point is that there's no way you can get around it if that's the vocabulary you want to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Like when you perform, is there a lot of freedom in your...
Well, I can pretty much tell you that at this point I don't think about anything. I just sort of play whatever I want to play, but that's I'm 31 now. I've been playing probably an average of 8 or 10 hours a day for now about 16, 17 years. And if it wasn't like that now, I probably would have quit a long time ago. I mean, it's like, it's the kind of thing where I've had a lot of opportunities to do it, and also was very interested in doing it. So at this point, I can comfortably, you could hand a set of unrelated chord changes to me that would be like a different chord every bar, and I could make 90% of them just looking at it, because I've done it for a long time, but it wasn't always like that. And also, I got the chance to play in Gary Burton's group, which harmonically is very demanding, and also he's very demanding harmonically, so at a very impressionable age I had that pretty much relentlessly put in front of me as something that had to be gotten together just to make it through the gig. And I mean, his gig is probably one of the 2 or 3 gigs on earth where that's true, because most bands, harmony just isn't that much of a
Was your single note reading really good when you were like 18?
Pretty good for a guitar player. I mean, that's pretty much always what I've said. I mean, I've always been a good reader for a guitar player, but compared to any woodwind player, I'm horrible. And that's true of almost any good guitar reader, because again, it's a situation that we don't have to do that much.
Yeah, I can read chords all day when it comes to single note stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, if you were from the time you were in the 5th grade until you got out of high school sitting in a concert band reading, what clarinet players have to read, you'd probably be real good at it. Yeah. It's just that it doesn't come up that much for guitar. We have to really kind of artificially force ourselves to do that. But again, that's another one. I mean, I don't think you've got to be a great reader, but I think it's real important to be able to read, just to have access to all the great music that's been written over the last several hundred years. I mean, I think it's important to have that under your belt too. Again, both that and this thing of playing on chords are really, I mean, I can think of great players who couldn't read a note and couldn't tell you what notes were in a C chord, but they're really rare. I mean, and they tend to be defensive about it too. It's like, oh, I don't need to read. I don't want to know anything about that. And if they can pull it off, great. But that's really exception.
Yeah, I've always thought that too. A lot of people have told me you should just use your ear. I thought, no way. I mean, you've got to use your ear, I know, but I mean, some people think using scales and all that is totally ridiculous.
Well, I think that also it's important to define what a chord scale is, because a lot of times, particularly in young players, like when I was teaching over there at Berkeley, it's easy to think of a scale as a scale, and it isn't really a scale at all. It's notes that work on a particular chord and available tones. And I mean, as far as the guitar goes, the way when I was teaching, one thing that I used to say, and I use it myself when I think of what chord scales really mean. It's like, imagine if you had some kind of like fancy computerized guitar, and there was a little light under each fret, and when you came to C Lydian, little lights for all the notes in C Lydian would light up, and that means that you can put your finger on any of those notes. You don't necessarily have to go from one to the next, but any of those notes light up, and then 2 beats later it goes to G Mixolydian, and then a whole different set of lights light up, and then you got it's like that. And that's what it is. It shouldn't mean that unless you hear it that way, that you're going to go I mean, because that's in fact the opposite of what you're supposed to be doing. And in fact, the very fact that we give these things the name scale, I think, is misleading right off the bat. I think, I always tend to think of them as arpeggios almost. When I think C Lydian, I tend to think C, E, G, B, D, F sharp, A, more than I think C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. I think of it like that. And most good players, I think, do that. I mean, having talked to like Brecker and people about how they envision chord scales, it's not in a sequence, it's in a stack. And I think that's a good trick to get out of the habit of thinking of them as sequential notes.
Well, thanks for coming out. Maybe you could talk about the synclavier a little bit and Falcon Summer.
Well, Pat, when you practice on like a standard tune, how do you go about like just practicing on a standard? You know, when you're sitting at home.
Get a metronome. That's the most important thing. Get it so that you can think of it as going on 2 and 4, not on like 1, 2, 3, 4, so that it's always on upbeats. Or if you get advanced at it, you get it so you can think of it as anything. You can think of it as the 4th, 16th note, or so that you can play against it anywhere. Then I just learned to play the tune, first of all, in the key that it's written in, so that I can sort of make my way through it. That might be a week's worth of work if it's a hard tune. Then play it at different tempos, and then the next thing, and very important thing to do, is to be able to play it in all 12 keys. And of course, memorizing it right is the first thing. You get it so that you don't have to be looking at it. And the time in my life when I was really doing that a lot was when I was about 15 or 16 years old, when I would just take a different tune every day and play it for 8 or 9 hours straight and try and make as much music out of it as I could. I mean, I never really was into practicing that much, where I would I was, whenever I would go down in the basement, I would think to myself, well, I'm going to go play. I wasn't, it wasn't like I was working on something else. Every time I picked up the instrument, I wanted to feel like I was playing music, and I think that's a pretty good policy to get into, rather than, okay, I'm practicing now to get ready to play later on. I mean, it should be each time you pick it up, you're trying to be musical about it, and it should almost be like a performance, even if you're the audience. But, the thing of being able to play a tune with a lot of different time feels is a tough one. I mean, it's really easy to get in the habit of playing a tune a certain way at a certain tempo in a certain key, and you can play that tune like that for days, but the moment you play with somebody else who knows it in another key and wants to play it as a waltz or something, you're fumbly. That's a sign that you don't really know the tune as well as you thought you did.
How do you go about exercising your comping, your rhythm exercising?
You mean like if you're going to play behind somebody as a solo, who's solo? To tell you the truth, I've always seen that as my weakest area, and a lot of it's because it's the thing that I've done the least. I tended to be in bands. I mean, the time when I did the most sort of rhythmic style comping was, again, years ago over in Kansas City, like in organ groups where the guitar functioned when the organ player was soloing as sort of the left hand, and I wasn't really very good at it then. And then in Gary's band, the role of the comping was pretty much non-rhythmic, or not non-rhythmic, but it wasn't essential to the rhythm because there was so much else going on. I mean, Gary plays a lot, and there was, for a while when I was in the band, there was even 2 guitars and drums and bass. Swallow plays a lot of guitar types. So the idea was not so much rhythmic as much as to just keep it real thin and stay out of the way. And then when I started my own band, it's easy. I can go on a tour and, not play a chord or any kind of rhythm guitar function for the entire time, because I'm functioning more like the horn or the soloist or the voice or something. And then in the last couple of years, I've intentionally written some tunes where I have rhythm guitar kind of functions because I enjoy doing it. But that's the area that the guitar is the least evolved in. I mean, there's a lot of room for somebody to come along and do that on an extremely high level, and that hasn't been done yet. To me, the best comper is Jim Hall, and I would say that most of my influences as far as what to do behind a horn player are based on having listened to his records and trying to imitate that. Schofield is a real good comper too, but there's very few other than that. Probably the best thing to do is listen to piano players. People like Wynton Kelly and stuff. But it's hard to get that feel on the guitar because they have the added benefit of being extremely percussive. I mean, I always thought the guitar was best as a comping instrument in a rock and roll setting because you can really bang on it.
Yeah.
In jazz, it tends to be if you bang on it, unless it's like a kind of rough kind of setting, like Blood Ulmer or something like that. I mean, then it tends to sound funny. It doesn't seem to blend with the other instruments, right?
Have you been doing any writing recently? Have you been doing a lot of
that's
writing?
pretty much what I've been doing these last
Do you
2-3 weeks.
Do you find that the times you reach like certain kinds of blocks and you don't have any kind of inspiration for a while, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. The whole thing of writing is, it's like going fishing or something. I mean, all you can do is just kind of throw in your line and sort of sit there, and either you're going to get something or you're not. But the point is, you have to go out and throw in your line. That's the thing. And it's easy to have a block and say, oh, well, God, I haven't been coming up with anything, and just kind of not doing anything. The point is that you have to go out and do it and try, even if you come up with nothing. And what I've found lately is a lot of times if I just force myself, I don't come up with anything right off the bat, but maybe like halfway through this tune that I'm hating, that I'm writing, even as I'm writing, I'm saying, oh God, this is awful. I'll finally come into something, and then maybe I'll throw out the whole first part, and then, you know, the point is that you got to like force yourself to keep at it. You know, I mean, my experience with writing has been one of almost complete mystification at it, because tunes just show up. I mean, and especially the best tunes tend to just kind of, I mean, I almost feel like I didn't even write them. I just kind of was sitting there and this tune just kind of showed up.
Yeah, you received it.
Yeah, I mean, without putting it in such metaphysical terms, that's sort of what it is, though. I mean, you know, and there's other tunes that are very complicated that you spend hours working on and all that, and that can be good too, but I can think of a number of tunes that just sort of just kind of came from I don't know where.
Do you usually write the keyboard, or do you think about guitar orientation?
Actually, lately neither. Just sort of like on a plane or something like that. I've had the best luck.
Okay.
Sometimes, you know, I mean, with the synclavier thing that somebody mentioned before, I mean, I do a lot of writing on that, and that tends to free up my imagination. You know, on the guitar, you tend to think in guitar terms, but if you're holding a guitar and it sounds like a orchestra or something, you know, it makes you think in different terms than the sound of the guitar, which is good.
The timbre's so different.
Yeah, and also writing on the keyboard can be good too, because it's so logical, as opposed to the guitar, which is basically illogical.
Can you use the synclavier as a tracking machine? It doesn't have like a digital onboard memory.
Oh yeah.
Tracks. So you can basically lay down tracks into its memory.
Yeah.
Recall them.
Yeah, it's great at that. Particularly lately, I mean, it's got this polyphonic sampling thing, so you can. I mean, it's like having a recording studio. It's great.
It's expensive.
It's really expensive. Yeah, you know, it's pretty much where I put all my money that I've ever made. You know, but it's good too, because it's also almost paid for itself, in the sense that I've written tunes on it that I think are very unlikely. It's unlikely I would have written them otherwise, that have been, you know, generated money from record sales, or, you know. So it even though it's an expensive habit, it's better than like buying a Porsche or something like that.
Yeah. You can't kill yourself on a synclavier.
Well, the thing about it is you always want more memory. You know,
Yeah.
And you always want more disc space on the Winchesters, and you always want more voices. So it's like, it's an eternal thing. Yeah. God, you guys don't have your. Yeah.
I could ask a general question.
Sure.
Like, how would you approach like your like for solo concepts?
Just solo guitar?
Yeah.
Or
how you would solo over something?
Well, it would depend on what mood I was in and what I felt like playing on that particular time. I mean, that's sort of what the deal is, you know. Ultimately, I mean, and also who I was playing with, what the audience was like, what the room was like. I mean, it seems to me that everything figures into it, you know. I mean, like the way I would approach a tune, if I was playing with, like for instance, Charlie and Billy Higgins or something, it would be very different than if I was going to play it with a you know, a big band or something, because the role of the guitar would be so different than it would be in that other situation. You know, to me, the idea about playing music is to, first of all, have a relationship with the audience that's one of, you know, sharing and trying to say, okay, look, here's how I see things. Maybe you'll see it like this too, if you hear it like this. You know? I mean, that's part of it, and so ultimately they become the most important thing, because if you have a feeling for the audience, then just like if you're talking to somebody, if you're talking to a girl that you really like, you're going to talk different than if you're talking to your mom, you know. So if it's a really good audience, which, you know, I'm real glad now after years of like having either no audiences or bad audiences, to be to the point now where almost every night it's a real good audience. It's so much fun to play, and you're so glad to be there, and so glad that everybody's there and they want to hear you play and everything. That the way I play now, I think, is real different than, like, say 10 years ago when I would play at a club in Boston or something and there were 5 people there, you know. I mean, or if you're just kind of playing with your friends in a living room, you tend to be playing for each other. So, you know, I'm not really specifically answering your question, but it's hard to say, well, this is how I would approach playing such and such tune, because it would depend on all those variables. And if I were to play a tune for you guys here, and you were the audience, I would play, I'm sure, very different than I would play if I was playing for a bunch of people who weren't guitar players, you know, in a club. You know, I mean, that's one thing that's kind of interesting about playing in Boston. It's not so much true anymore, but like there used to be a club downtown called the Jazz Workshop. I used to play all the time with Gary and when my band first started. And, you know, of course, in the Berkeley Groove, I mean, there's lots of guitar players there. And they would all come down, you know, and the first 5 or 6 rows would be all guitar players. And it wasn't really very much fun to play for that audience. It was much less fun to play for that than it was to play for kind of a cross-section, because you had a specific idea of what the audience was looking for. When there's a mystery quotient in the audience, like you don't really know why they're there, but they really are glad that they're there, that tends to be the most fun kind of audience to play for, and seems to inspire the best kind of music.
Do you tend to feel more inspired when you're playing live, or when you're shaping something in the studio?
Well, definitely live.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
Making records and being in the studio for me is still very tough. And also, we don't spend that much time in the studio. It's not like we shape things in the studio, because we tend to go in there and set up and then play and then leave. You know.
Pretty much no overdubs for
some for technical reasons,
right,
usually,
right.
but usually not for solos. I don't think I've overdubbed solos too much. But you know, the studio situation is one that I'm still trying to learn more about and get a grip on just what you're doing when you're there, because it's there's a basic problem with being an improviser and going into a recording studio. Because the idea of being an improviser is that you want to play it different every time, but at the same time you'd have to be crazy not to know that that's going to be it, and that's going to be the version of that tune that most people are going to hear. I mean, so it's a, you know, there's a dilemma there. You have to say, okay, well, am I going to take a lot of chances and maybe mess up a few things, but get some hip stuff, or do I want to have maybe a little bit more conservative solo that's going to be real specific and also maybe stand up more over time? And to find that balance is something that I find really difficult.
And I guess a lot of the time you don't really have the luxury of being able to take a lot of time and work something out. Or
at this point, I probably do have the time. But I would have that possibility, but I'm not sure that it depends on what the goal is, and that's the other thing, is that, you know, what are records really for, you know, and that's, boy, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, particularly with us, it seems we have such a wide audience, and I mean, you know, they range from like maybe, you know, music students who are going to like transcribe every note and know every, you know, like why did you play a, you know, C natural on that B minor chord instead of a C sharp, to, you know, somebody's mother who said, oh, it's so pretty. And you know, not that you should worry about those things, and I try not to, but still I'm aware that it's a real, it's not like, you know, ZZ Top, where their goal is to get people to boogie, you know. I mean, that's sort of, that's kind of like what the idea is, you know. When you're talking about improvised music, it functions on a number of levels. At least for me, live it does. And to translate that into something specific in a recording studio is difficult. Not to mention the fact that it's easy to get nervous in a recording studio because it's such an artificial environment. You know, there's no real audience there. You don't have any real feedback. You tend to become incredibly self-conscious about the way you play, and for very good reason. I mean, there's two mics, you know, right in front of you that are amplifying every flaw and everything that's weird. I mean, I'm sure anybody that's been in a recording studio knows the experience of when your track is soloed and you hear all this, you know, all this weird noise and, you know, yourself breathing and, you know, grunting and stuff that, you know, you had no idea was even happening. And, you know, it can be, I mean, it can be very good too.
Yeah, I guess it has to be a good experience.
There's a lot of musicians who rise to the occasion of a recording studio, and, you know, they tend to be studio musicians. And then there's a few who can bring the best of both worlds to a recording studio. I mean, a classic example is Miles, who, in addition to just being a brilliant player, also makes fantastic records and sounds unbelievably great in a recording studio. But, you know, like, to me, somebody like Jim Hall, I mean, I've heard him play live a bunch of times. The records don't do him justice, not even close. And Sonny Rollins is another one. You know, I mean, you know, some of his older records are real good, but I mean, you can't find a record in the last 20 years that sounds half as good as he sounds on an average night. And you know, it's true of a lot of people. I think it's true of more people than it's not true of for jazz stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense, because the music is.
Yeah.
I heard an interview from you, I guess, a couple of years ago, and you said that you were interested about doing an album, possibly with John Scofield, that you enjoyed playing with. Have you ever had a chance to elaborate on that more?
We haven't, but that's something I'd really love to do.
Yeah.
Because we've known each other for years and have played together, you know, fairly regularly, you know, as time is allowed. And, you know, he's just such a great player.
Yeah.
And we've always had a lot of fun playing together too, because we have so many common interests, but we've approached solving them in completely different ways. You know? the whole sort of harmonic thing, you know, that's so unexplored on the guitar. But his thing is, I mean, just even sound-wise, we're going at it from completely different angles.
Interesting combination.
He's great. He's really, he's the one guitar player that when I go hear him, I absolutely can just forget. I don't worry about anything. It's like I can just listen and just have a blast. I don't have to say, oh man, why does he do that? Or, you know, why would, you know, I mean, I just don't even think. I can just go and have a great time. Yeah. I don't worry about his time or his chords. I mean, it's 100% there. He's not the one, but he's one of the few.
Yeah.
Goodrick's another. I mean, where I can just say, yeah, go, play.
You think you'll ever record with Jim Hall?
I think that's very likely. I don't know when, but sometime.
Yeah, because last time I talked to Jim, he said you had a toothbrush in the mail.
Yeah,
Did you ever
he
get
did.
that?
He did, yeah. In fact, I carried it around with me everywhere.
Yeah, he's a nice guy, man. He's real nice.
Great guy. Yeah, it's funny, we played together, it was funny, we played opposite each other, and then we played duo for about 5 choruses, and the people who were the rhythm section, I mean, originally we were going to play duo for a couple tunes, and the people who were the rhythm section, it was Ben Ryle and Harvey Schwartz, they couldn't stand it, and they came and joined in. But that 5 choruses of just us together was one of the highlights of my life, you know, to get to play with him like that. And it was really intriguing. I mean, it made me see just instantly that we could make a great duo record. And I think he felt the same way. It was really fun.
Yeah, he makes a lot of duo records with like Spades.
Well, yeah.
His
His things with Ron Carter are like classic. I got to see them play live together about 5-6 nights in a row when I was maybe 17, and that's the best guitar playing I've ever heard to this day. It's the most musical, the most complete, the most chops, everything. It's the best music I think I've ever heard on the guitar. It's really something. And those records don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. As good as they are, they don't really capture that thing.
Because I've seen him like a whole bunch of times, and I said, Jim, like, what were you doing? He was doing like this funky shape and just moving it. He goes, I don't know, I just kind of grabbed it and it sounded good, so he kept doing it. So he says, you know, a lot of it is just subconscious. You're just there and something happens and you keep doing it.
Yeah.
And then you go back to the hotel going, wow, what was I doing? But so that would be good. So in the future, that'd be something.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things, you know, that I want to do, and that, you know, might get a chance to do, you know. That's the other thing about making records is that there comes a point where you can only make so many records too. You can't be making every record that you'd ever want to make all at once, because it's awful to say this, but it's true that the market can't support it, and when people do make more records than their audience is capable of absorbing, it tends to backfire and tends to make them less. I mean, it's sort of like, you know, you got to almost play hard to get or something. And I mean, I hate to be that calculated about it, but in order to survive in the music business, you know, I sort of have to look at things realistically. And I mean, there's, you know, a couple 100,000 people who like to buy my records, you know, once a year. And so it's like, you know, gotta be cool.
Yeah, it's lucky that you pretty much have freedom to look at your music the way you want to, and you don't have any kind of do you have any pressures from any kind of recording industry people? I guess not, on ECM.
Well, I mean, actually I've left ECM.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and in fact I'm just getting set to do the first record for the new company.
What's the new label?
It's Geffen. which is, it's not a jazz label at all, but they've given me absolute carte blanche to do anything. The first record is going to be a quartet record with me and Ornette and Charlie, and I'm not sure who the drummer is going to be. We're doing it in about 2 weeks. But, I mean, the only pressure that I ever had with ECM was actually to make it spacier. You know, I mean, it's sort of the opposite of what most people have. You know, I mean, you know, they, and it wasn't even a pressure, it's just that that's this guy Manfred's preference is not spacey, but, well, you know that thing. That thing. And, you know, I had to fight to make our records that were more or less more commercial. I mean, not that the I ever song was commercial, but I mean, I like that kind of music just like I like anything else. And personally, I refuse to be intimidated by either point of view, either that it's too commercial or that it's too outside. I mean, to me, I want to play what I like, and I like all kinds of stuff, and I always have. And the natural thing to me as a musician is to play the music that you like to play. You shouldn't be forced into one thing or another. And, you know, with ECM, it wasn't even so much conversation that led me to think that. It was also economics, you know, I mean, very small budgets were given to all the musicians, which is fine. And in fact, that's how that company's been able to survive. But, you know, there's certain projects that I just couldn't do without putting my own bread up. And, got to the point that those were my group projects, you know, I mean, where instead of spending 2 days to make a record, we needed to spend 4, you know, which doesn't seem like it would be a lot, but they wouldn't cover that, you know, so I had to come up with the bread someplace else, which is a drag.
Yeah, seriously.
And, you know, also probably the most important thing is that they were in Germany while I was here, and it was kind of difficult to be coordinating everything with Germany when in fact we always sold like 10 times more records here than we did anywhere else, and this was really our main focus. So I've kind of been interested for a while in maybe finding a situation with an American company where I can do what I do and have it marketed properly but still have the same quality level that ECM has, which is real good pressing.
Just a very low
and very high quality artwork, and you know, just done right. And finally this situation appeared, and so I'm going to do that. And in fact, I'll have really now unlimited freedom in terms of what I want to do and when I do it and how I do it and all that stuff.
Yeah. Be interesting to see how it works out.
Yeah, it's either going to be a complete disaster or it's going to be great. I think it's probably going to be okay because this company, Geffen, is also distributed by Warner's, which ECM was too, so everything will kind of be in the same you know, area, and it's not like it's going to be a whole different set of people marketing it and stuff. So, and at this point, I think most people that go out to buy our records don't know what label it's on, except for, you know, the 10% real die-hard ECM fans, you know. You know, most people say, oh yeah, well, they got a new record out and they hear it and either they like it or they don't. If they like it, they're going to buy it. It's just like I start to think, well, you know, half the people that I like, I have no idea what label they're on. If I hear that, you know, Sonny Rollins has got a new record out and everybody says it's real good, I'll go buy it. You know. I mean, the ECM thing too has changed pretty drastically over the last 5 or 6 years. I mean, for a long time it really was an unbelievable community of musicians, you know, and a real great vibe and everything, but a lot of the people that made ECM what it was at the company had left, and really there's only one of the original people left now, so it's changed a lot, feeling. But man, I'll tell you, while it was at its peak, it was really something special, and I was real proud to be in the middle of it.
Yeah, I take it you met a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
Nice connections.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
It's invaluable.
Yeah, it's great.
It's kind of an unrelated question. When you guys play on stage, you get the PA mix relatively loud, obviously, because you play in I saw you in the Man Music Center the night of Live Aid.
Oh, right, yeah.
Philly, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering how loud your stage volume is.
Relatively speaking, it's pretty soft.
Yeah.
I tend to be the loudest one.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of that by the guys. But no, I tend to I balance to the drums, and I like to stand, about this close to the drums. I mean, I've always liked to be right on top of it, so that I'm hearing the cymbal, or the cymbals in this ear, and I just balance to that so that I'm slightly above the drums, and I wouldn't want to be too much louder than that, and then we can get the piano pretty much at that same level in the monitors that we have on stage. And we have a very simple setup in that respect. I mean, nobody has any drums in the monitors. We try to all hear it live.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you can play with much more realistic dynamics that way.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. To me, I was in a situation with Joni Mitchell a few years ago where, I mean, the drums were there, I was like there, Lyle was there, and the bass was over there, it was like, in a place like Man Music Center, we would be spread across the entire stage,
Right.
with everybody having everything in their monitors, and we never got a blend. It never sounded like a band, it always sounded like individuals. And, having grown up in situations in clubs, I'm used to getting the blend amongst the cats right there, and then, then you have a unit like force or something that if you're hearing it from a speaker, I don't think you can ever get that.
Yeah.
It doesn't look that good to have everybody kind of like have this gigantic stage and everybody kind of nodded up there in the middle, but I don't really care.
You ever have any problems with feedback from the 175, or
I've always had a problem with it. I mean, but since it's the first guitar that I ever got, I've just kind of based my whole playing on kind of holding my hand on the lower strings while I'm picking it, so that it's just deadening it. And if I take my hand off it, it just freaks out. So it's always been that.
Yeah.
Particularly as loud as we play.
Yeah.
Well, let me hear a couple of you guys play. Who wants to play duo?
I'll play.
Okay, I want you guys to
Can you
play.
give me an amp though?
An amp?
Yeah.
One right there. With Lil, you want to pull JC out here?
No, I'll use a little one.
Bill, where's your bathroom?
Like that. Oh shit, there's is there a cable down here?
No, I think I need cable. This is one like this.
Go for it.
Is that plugged in? Yeah. Watch pull.